contest master, fellow daybreakers, and our guests. Ernest Hemingway once said, "It is by riding a bicycle that you learn the contours of a country best, since you have to sweat up the hills and coast down them." My cousin Donna, a serious biker, proposed the idea that we do exactly that across the state of Washington. And I jumped in with both wheels. We scheduled a vacation, loaded our bikes, disassembled our bikes, loaded our bags, packed them in boxes, and boarded a plane to Seattle. Two adventurous girls took a cab north to the tiny college town of Bellingham, where we reassembled our bikes and headed off. The trip we mapped was 420 miles from Seattle to Spokane, over State Route 20, or 5 mountain ranges. You probably don't remember this time, but we were using paper maps, no cell phones, no GPS. How did we manage? We thought that day one would be the hardest part of our trip. Having equipped my bike with 24 new speeds, including granny gears, I thought I was well prepared for 36 miles straight up. I'm sure that Donna was in better shape, but even she would admit that the first couple of miles in only first or second gear proved a bit daunting. We found great triumph in shouting expletives loudly over the next few hours. I'm quite sure it doesn't count if no one hears you. The only vehicles we saw along the way were large logging trucks that nearly blew us off the road. At noon, we lay down exhausted in rough gravel and fell asleep. Donna said I was snoring in 2 minutes. I was awakened abruptly when Donna cried out in pain. A passing truck had come a little too close and a piece of gravel had come flying at her head. Blood was dripping. She had a small gash, but no serious damage. We got out the first aid kit and made a commitment not to sleep by the road again. We carried everything we needed on our bikes: sleeping bags, clothes, tuna, MREs. When we stopped for the night, we had an ingenious plan for keeping the bears away from our camp. When we had to get rid of the water we consumed, we relieved our bladders in a large circular pattern at 12 noon, 3 p.m., 6 o'clock, and 9 o'clock around our sleeping bags. Because of my snoring, Donna chose to sleep a little ways away from me, and I would wake up to her making coffee close to my head. On the third morning, I heard her rustling and said, "Good morning." To my surprise, she said, "Morning," from about 20 feet away. I sat up and looked straight into the eyes of a skunk. Because of the way I had moved, I could see that I had put the skunk in defensive mode, and I feared the worst. I pulled out my sleeping bag just in time to shield my eyes. Unfortunately, I got a full body blast from Pepe Le Pew. While we had anticipated confrontations with bears or coyotes, this was the one thing we hadn't prepped for. We did our best to isolate the skunked things and headed into the nearest town, of course after our power breakfast of coffee and oatmeal. We were fortunate that almost every town we entered had convenient pay showers and coin laundries. $36 later, we were on our way. To supplement the few food items we packed and carried, we visited local markets to pick up the ingredients to make salad in our helmet bowls. On one particular grocery run, I ended up with a julienne salad when the lettuce, tomato, and cucumber flipped off the back rack of my bike and caught in the wheel. I was just happy that I didn't flip the bike or ruin the spokes. In our travels, we learned that 20 billion apples are hand-picked in Washington each year. No machines, enough to circle the earth 60 times. And I thought we lived in apple country. The orchards we passed in the valleys between the mountain ranges were vivid greens and luscious reds. In stark contrast to the rich farmlands we passed, our longest day consisted of an 86-mile ride through dry, dusty, non-irrigated plains that looked a lot like hell as I imagine it. At one point in this Death Valley, we passed a man on a bike headed in the other direction, who most assuredly had a tail peeking out behind his seat. The remainder of our trip was filled with magnificent mountains, spectacular emerald lakes, delightful people, cold hands, and sore legs. Charles Schultz said, "Life is like a 10-speed bike. Most of us don't use all the gears." I, for one, am committed to using every gear to its fullest. Ladies and gentlemen, it's always possible that we misremember things, but sometimes truth is stranger than fiction.